Come over.
It's not, she'll return. It's Wisconsin. That's
A reset here.
Yeah, Colorado, she's staying with friends and they were up.
Good.
Good.
All right, I got the thumbs up that we're live, and I got 6:30 on my cell phone, so we will go ahead and call the meeting to order with roll call, please.
Here. Here.
Here.
Here.
Maria Mason.
Here.
Lisa Panzer.
Here.
Brad Freely.
Here.
Gary Spielman.
Here.
Joanne Pedroski.
Here.
All right. Join me in the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we have minutes from the regular meeting on December 13th and special meeting on December 20th and January 3rd.
I move for approval of the December 13th regular meeting minutes and the special meetings on December 20th and January 3rd.
Second.
All right, motion and a second then to approve the minutes for December 13, 20, and January 3rd. All in favor?
Aye.
All those not, same sign? Those are approved. Welcome, everybody. Some visitors in the crowd, so thank you for coming, and everybody else that ventured out in this nice, cold evening, and to all those that chose to stay much more comfortable and are watching the YouTube channel at home. So thank you for joining us tonight. With that, we do have two individuals signed up for public comment. Before we get into that, in recognition of the privacy rights of individuals and employees of the district, the Board of Education prohibits any public comment on individual employees or constituents of the district on the matters in which an employee or constituent may be identified or inferred from the comments. The Board of Education will generally not discuss or take action on non-agenda items brought up by the public at the meeting. So with that, we'll go ahead and start with Steve.
All right, is this on?
Yep.
Thanks for giving me a chance to talk, and thanks for in the last meeting. I know tonight you're gonna talk about the return to school and what the plan is gonna be for, going forward for kids that come down with COVID. So thank you for reviewing that. For those of you that don't know, my family, had COVID, and my youngest daughter tested positive and quarantined at home for 10 days and then could return to school. But my oldest daughter, who didn't test positive, couldn't return to school for 2 weeks after my youngest could go back to school, which is punishing, in my opinion, of someone who is healthy. And so I appreciate you looking at that return to school plan. In my opinion, every one of us has faced discrimination of some kind throughout our lives. And in my opinion, that's discrimination between, and it's not just that, it's the vaccinated kids could get to go back to school, as I understand, earlier than non-vaccinated kids. And I don't think that's fair either. So, over the last 2 years, a lot of evidence continues to be revealed about the situation that we're in with this coronavirus that we face on a daily basis that's not going to go away. More and more information comes out every day. The CDC has been forced to admit, or they've acknowledged, that the PCR tests don't differentiate between coronaviruses and the flu viruses. And that's been one of the metrics that we've used to get kids to come back to school. And we could debate the reasons why, or if there's an ulterior purpose or whatever. I don't really want to get into that, but those are the facts. It doesn't differentiate. And so to look at the positive tests and to say that, oh, we're going to go back and we're going to start mandating masks, or we're going to start mandating that a kid has to get vaccinated in order to participate in school, in my opinion, is discrimination. That's completely unnecessary, especially in light of the fact that the CDC admits, and we all know now, that vaccinated people are still able to catch COVID, and they're still able to transmit COVID. So, and I know that's maybe not the most popular thing to say, but it's the truth. The CDC has admitted it. And so why are we discriminating? Why are we as parents discriminating? I would like to see this return to life, return to school plan, not discriminate. And I really, honestly, I appreciate your efforts and getting the kids back to school without masks. I think that was a huge improvement. I think in the mental health of the kids, the Surgeon General just came out this week and talked about the effects, the mental health effects of this on kids, the negative effects of it. Returning to life, we've been dealing with viruses our whole lives. We survived. And some of you that know my story, like, we survived on over-the-counter vitamins. Like, we recovered the next day when we started taking the right dosage, when our doctor gave us the right dosage of the supplements to take, we recovered. Now, I know that's not everyone's case, and my doctor told me so. It's not everyone's case. But if I get censored on Facebook for sharing something that a doctor recommended that helped my family, even my mom with underlying conditions, that's, to me, it's not right. It's not. So, you know, egos, politics, all that aside, looking at the science that's available, the data that's available, I hope that is a consideration as you try to make the decisions of how the return to school happens for our kids. That's really all I had to say. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Steve. Next, we got Joe. Come on up.
Thanks, Mark. A number of you here know me and some of you don't. I guess I want to tell you about a little occupation I hear had the month of December, and Bev can verify that. But I was around a lot of kids, upwards of 600. And I mean, we were face to face, close contact. I mean, and I literally had to, the Thursday before Christmas, go get COVID tested because I was going to have a knee replaced. And being around all those children, all those adults, and everything else has told me one thing, that if anybody should have had COVID or anybody should have tested positive or whatever, I should have been, with all that close contact and everything that I had with all these individuals. But as my fellow speaker here said before, there is no rhyme or reason to this whole COVID thing that I can see. I'm a few years older than probably most of you here, but I remember as a child going and seeing my grandfather in the nursing home, and they had a couple times when I went there, they had him locked down because the common cold, flu, or whatever was going through, and we couldn't go see him, you know, for health reasons or whatever. I remember also in my 30s, I was delivering groceries to a chain of nursing homes and stuff in Oklahoma and Texas. And You know, some of them I had to leave the stuff out by the back door because they didn't want me coming in their facilities for fear of bringing in, you know, whatever. But what I'm going to tell you is my history has told me every year that goes along, we have a cold and flu season. It comes, it goes, and yes, there are people that lose their lives. But over the past 60-plus years that I've been alive, there has been people that have lost their lives to pneumonia or different variations of airborne particles that you breathe in. Virtually trying to stop them it hasn't happened for 60-something years. I've gotten colds and flu, and when I went to school, if I had a fever or runny nose or whatever, my mom, you stay home, you know? But there's just way too much going on here that we need to just let our children live and let them move forward. And I know a doctor, an ear, nose, and throat doctor very well. And he said, you know, as far as the children goes and everyone else, this thing will be beat by natural immunity, but if we're going to try and mask it and cover it up or try and figure out a way to beat it, it's an airborne particle. It's not happening. We're not going to beat it. We're going to figure out, just like cancer and everything else, we're going to live with it, and we're going to keep trying to figure it out. But until we get it figured out, whatever we try here, the children have gone back to living when we started unmasking them. And I personally asked my granddaughter tonight, who goes to the middle school here, if you had to have every child in this building vote mask or no mask, she said, well, why can't we all just stay home then, Grandpa? Well, we're here to educate the kids, and we're here to take care of the kids and make sure that they grow up as smart, respectful adults. And if we mask them up, we ain't helping them. So with that, I guess I hope that we don't have to go back to that.
All right, thank you, Joe. All right, so 2 people then for public. I just want to also acknowledge, I want to just make sure everybody understands the board does get a lot of communication. So I was just looking through our emails that we got since the last time we got together, and I recorded 11 other emails that we've gotten from staff and community as well. So we take all of that information into consideration as well. So thank everybody for corresponding with us on that avenue as well. With that, we will move on to announcements.
The board may recess into closed session per Wisconsin Statute 19.85, Parent 1, Parent C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, specifically to discuss specific employees and approve the minutes of the closed session on December 13th, 2021. The board will reconvene into open session for the possible transaction of business and adjournment.
All right, thank you, Bev. Moving on, then, we have an agenda. Looking for approval.
Also move.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the agenda for this evening. All in favor?
Aye.
All those not, same sign. All right, we have an agenda to move forward. With that, we will move to 9.1, School of the Month presentation, Wilson Elementary. Welcome.
Good evening, everyone. I'm excited to be here tonight to update you on all of our efforts at Wilson Elementary School so far this year. For those of you who are watching or new to joining the board meeting or maybe haven't ever met me before, I'm Ashley Jansma. I'm the principal at Wilson Elementary School. So I'm going to start off tonight by just providing a little overview or background of Wilson Elementary School for those of you who are not familiar. Wilson Elementary is a single-section school. We are the only single-section school here in Beaver Dam. We have grade levels 4K through 5th grade. So single section essentially meaning that we have one class of kindergarten, one class of 1st grade, so on and so forth. For our 4K, we only have one section, so we have an afternoon section. We do not run a 4K class in the morning, only in the afternoon. So with that, we have about 135 students. We have about 30 staff members. We have one special education classroom at Wilson that has one special education teacher who services our grades 1st through 5th grade. And then we also have an early childhood special education teacher who is housed out of Wilson, and she serves our 4K and kindergarten special education population. Furthermore, with our staff, being a smaller school, our support looks a little bit different. We do have to share a lot of our staff members, so we don't get to have them all to ourselves all the time. So I'll provide a little bit of what that looks like. We do have an LST who is with us every morning, Monday through Friday, so that's a literacy support teacher. And then we are also very fortunate to have a math interventionist at Wilson Elementary School this year. She is solely at Wilson, but she is only with us in the mornings. And again, that's Monday through Friday. We also have some pupil service staff members who support Wilson School. So we do have more support in that area this year than they did last year. So that's been very exciting. We have someone in our building Tuesday through Fridays. So basically we have a school social worker who is with us 2 days a week. We have a school psychologist who's with us 1 day a week. And then we also have a school counselor who's with us once a week. Of course, our PE, art, and music teachers we share with other buildings. We do have an ELL support teacher who comes in once a week to service some of our ELL population. And then we are also very fortunate to have, it's a district-wide special education program support teacher who's been supporting our special education program quite a bit at Wilson this year, as well as a couple of our district behavior interventionists. So now I'm just going to go over our 3 main objectives for a school success plan for the 21-2022 school year. So we really landed and kind of determined what our 3 main objectives or goals, if you will, would be for Wilson Elementary. And we did this, we reviewed our data this summer as a leadership team, so that comprised of myself as well as multiple staff members from Wilson. So we basically looked at our data. We really focused in on some of our spring data, including iReady, Forward, and some other just kind of informal data that we had as well. So I'm just going to go through those 3 objectives. Like all of the schools you really see, we basically usually have a math and a reading or ELA goal. So our first objective really focuses in on reading. So we were looking at wanting to improve the number of students that we have who are proficient according to our iReady diagnostic. So our iReady diagnostic is a diagnostic that our students take in the fall, winter, and spring. So we reviewed last spring's data again, as well as the forward data. And with that, we've determined we'd like to look at increasing by about 3% overall with the number of students who are proficient this spring on that diagnostic. But we're really focusing our interventions in on those students who are 2 or more grade levels below, and then specifically really looking at our 2nd and 4th grade cohorts. For our second objective, again, we're using the iReady as kind of our main source for measuring our achievement. So that is a math focus. We're looking at increasing our number of proficiency from 56% last spring to 60% for this spring of students who are in grade level or higher in math. Again, we are focusing on really our interventions on those students who are 2 or more grade levels below, and then our 2nd grade cohort. For our third objective, this is where we're maybe a little bit different than what you've heard from some of the other elementary schools. Most of the schools really went along with focusing on the connectedness. So we kind of saw across the board at the majority of our schools, according to the school perception survey that students took, a lot of students were feeling kind of a lack of connectedness in the school, which is understandable, especially this last couple of years. So we know that that's important, and it's certainly something we're still focusing on at Wilson. But we also felt like with being a small school and maybe not having some of the resources that some of the other schools have, being a single section school, we really wanted to focus on our initiatives of being a professional learning community. So we know that that's really important and something that all of our schools and as a whole district, we've really been striving towards being a true professional learning community and what that process looks like in a single section school, as well as really focusing in on our new curriculum resources that we have, specifically our reading resource with InterReading, and just really making sure that we're feeling comfortable with how we're implementing that, especially with the workshop model, and really focusing in on how does that look Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. So you might be asking, how are we planning to measure that? Generally speaking, we kind of feel like if we're successful with objectives 1 and 2, we'd feel pretty good that we've done a pretty great job with objective 3. I've also been just kind of soliciting feedback from the teachers on how they feel we are doing throughout that process as well. So where we're at with our most current progress monitoring data for those objectives, back up to our first one. So our progress monitoring data, really the teachers have kind of had a little autonomy with this as far as looking at what is kind of the greatest area need for their class, and so what specific maybe skill or strand are they going to focus in on measuring, working maybe a little more closely with their focusing on their interventions and measuring through progress monitoring. So the idea is that really if they're focusing on their class and their students' greatest areas of need, hopefully that in turn is going to bring our overall scores up. So for our first objective, looking at the reading, right now, currently with our December data, we were looking at about 54% of our students being proficient based on their progress monitoring that they're doing. And this might include mid-unit quizzes or comprehension quizzes that are part of that curricular resource that we have. For the objective 2, teachers are using primarily their mid-unit math assessments to progress monitor their students' growth throughout so far this first semester. And right now we're looking at about 60% of our students being proficient in math, is according to that. So now I'm going to jump ahead to how we're going to do this. So I've kind of explained our 3 main objectives or goals for this school year. So our how really is our action steps. So what actions were we planning to take this school year to really try and meet our goals? So as you can see from the chart that's presented here, the first column I have objective 1 and 2. A lot of those action steps really kind of overlapped with the math and reading. Some of those strategies that we were going to take to try to work towards achieving our goals for objective 1 and 2 are very similar. So I overlapped some of those. The middle column, it's a little more specific, broken down to some of our ELA and math. And then our third column, I'll review some of our action steps towards our third objective. So for our math and reading objective, the first one that you can see there, and I should also mention, I know you guys have seen this before, but it's kind of the stop light system. So green essentially indicates this is something we are doing really well with. Yellow, we are working towards it. Maybe we've just started, or it's kind of continuous. Red is an area of need where we maybe haven't focused on that as much yet. So again, back up to our objectives 1 and 2 action steps. The first one, we really wanted to utilize a data protocol during our collaboration time this school year, and really focus in on those instructional strategies. We've been really fortunate during our collaboration time on Tuesdays this year to have Jesse Peters at Wilson to support us. He's been with us quite a few times, so we've really appreciated his support during this process. But what this really looks like is we identify our unit that we're getting ready to teach. So as a teacher, I may be coming into Unit 3, and so at the beginning of the unit, I'm looking at what standards, what essential standards are really being taught in this unit, and what learning targets are being taught in order to help students really become proficient in those specific standards. And then we look at, within that document, what are some prerequisite skills we would expect our students to have in order to become proficient in these standards. And then we also talk about what is our interim assessment. So how are we really going to assess or monitor how our students are doing with working towards being proficient in the standards of this specific unit? So that's kind of where we're at right now at Wilson. Our teachers have identified their units, looked at the standards. They have identified their interim assessments, and we've kind of mapped out, okay, this assessment's going to be taken in a couple of weeks. So at our next that collaboration time, we're going to review the data, analyze it, and then think about how are we going to act. So what are our next steps? So this is our data. What are we going to do with it? And that's when we really talk a lot about looking at those instructional strategies. And when looking at your data, certainly if there's a vertical bleed, we know that a lot of our students are really struggling with this specific skill. What are we going to do as educators to help support and maybe teach that differently? Then, of course, that helps inform our instructional groups for Tier 2 and Tier 3 as well. Next down, teachers assist students with personal goal setting. This is something we are currently in progress with right now, especially come mid-year. We're gearing up to, in fact, starting tomorrow, some of our students are going to start taking their second diagnostic for iReady. So really looking at their fall scores, kind of getting them excited. This is where you were at. This is your goal for the end of the year. Where do we want you to be here now at mid-year? And really should be talking about those goals throughout the whole entire year. And just having that open dialogue with students and really get them to own their learning and get excited. Our SIT meetings, so that's school-wide intervention team meetings, we are meeting weekly. We rotate our focus. We kind of flip-flop bi-weekly. So 1 week we meet to discuss and look at some of our social, emotional, behavioral data. So that meeting, I'm a part of that meeting, and then some of our PPS support staff, our teachers are a part of that as well. So it might be our counselor, a school social worker, a school psychologist are a part of those meetings. And then we have our academic meetings every other week, and as part of those, of course, we have our literacy support teacher, our math interventionist, typically our school psych. And at times we may also have Mrs. Wiedenhoft, our gifted and talented teacher, join us, and kind of depending on our focus for that week.
Ashley, just a quick
Yes.
question. What does SIT stand for?
Yes, it stands for School-Wide Intervention Team.
Okay.
So basically, we're just monitoring those interventions, whether they're behavioral or academic. So teacher-student learning objectives, that's the teacher SLOs. Just ensuring that our teachers' SLOs do connect to our overarching school goals, and that we do have in place. So some of our teachers, depending on, again, their specific greatest area needs within their classroom, either connect to one of our ELA or math goals. So we are doing solid with that. Building capacity within the workshop model, really having that standards focus. Just thinking about our curriculum as really our resource, and understanding that our essential standards truly are our curriculum. That's what we really want our students to be able to know and be able to do. So we continue to have a lot of rich conversation around that within professional, some of our professional development time at a building level and a district level. And then we have some of those discussions during our collaboration time as well. So moving on specifically to ELA and math, building level professional development around research-based vocabulary and comprehension instructional strategies. So vocabulary and comprehension really were two strands within our reading achievement that we found was kind of a greatest area of need for us at Wilson, so that's why we really wanted to focus in on that. We have had some professional development around that within our building. Our building literacy support teacher, Claire Hinkes, was a really key player in that. She did a wonderful job of getting some resources together for our teachers during that time. Our K-5 classes will have 80% or more of students at 45 minutes of iReady per week. So this is a balancing act. We know that our iReady online personalized instruction certainly does not replace all the great work that our teachers do, but we also know that it's a really great resource to have. And if students can get on there for about 10 minutes a day, the way that iReady works, it's kind of, this is where technology can be really cool, but it really personalizes their learning path for them. Building level professional development directly related to numbers and operations and algebra and algebraic thinking. This is an area that we've certainly had informal conversations around some of that within like our collaboration time or just peer-to-peer, but we have not had really much formal professional development around that. So that is definitely a priority moving forward for us, and certainly going to be a part of some of our staff time together here in the very near future. Utilize our Number Worlds math intervention. So this is very exciting. This is a new resource that we have this year in the district. Again, it's called Number Worlds Math Intervention. So that can be used by the classroom teacher as an additional resource for them to use during like their tier 2 time working with students. And our math interventionist, Julie Lysis Corcoran, she's also been using that during her tier 3 intervention time with students. Moving on to objective 3. So again, back to really wanting to do PLCs really, really well in our small school. So the first two I'll kind of put together, but that top one, utilize professional literature around PLCs in small schools to support our goals for collaboration. So I was able to get my hands on some professional literature specifically to being a professional learning community and doing collaboration in a small single section school. I'm trying to think, I think it was end of October, maybe early November. That was our other time. We just did this one, I think it was in November. But we met together as a staff during some of our time together, and we basically, I took a chapter out of that, one of those professional literatures by Erin Hansen, and we read through that together as a staff, and then we talked about really just kind of what spoke to us, where do we see ourselves as a small single section school, and how we can do collaboration, and I'll get into that a little bit more. And then what we did was we broke into small groups. So moving down to that second box, engage in vertical alignment discussions focused on strategies. So one thing that can be seen as possibly a challenge in a single section school with collaboration time is a lot of the other schools, all of the kindergarten teachers can meet together. All of the first grade teachers can meet together to discuss maybe some of their successes and challenges and some of those instructional strategies. That might be seen as challenging in a single section school when there's only one kindergarten teacher, one first grade teacher. But what we can do and what is really being seen as an opportunity is we can focus more on some vertical alignment. So when our teachers collaborate, our kindergarten and first grade teacher meet, second and third grade teacher meet, and then fourth and fifth grade teacher meet. So really looking at how we can use that to our advantage and knowing that, okay, this is what, really having a good understanding of is if I'm a first grade teacher, this is what our students, I can easily access that kindergarten teacher during this collaboration time to really talk about how they did in kindergarten and what were some of the instructional strategies that maybe you used that worked really well with some of these specific standards. So we had some really nice discussion around that. I actually had all of the standards printed off for all the grade levels, and they had a chance to meet in some of those vertical aligned groups and really look at the standards and see how some of their essential standards maybe aligned and were very much alike and maybe what was different. Invite instructional coaches to collaboration time at a minimum on a quarterly basis to support our teachers' needs. So you've heard from some of the other elementary buildings so far that they do have Selena Elvin and Ryan Ewing coming into their buildings for I believe it's 6-week rotations to support in their buildings. We do not have that. Wilson's not a part of that official rotation for support. But we have had them come in quarterly. They've already been in twice, maybe even 3 times, actually, to just come in during our collaboration time, answer questions for teachers. It's been nice to just have them kind of share some of the things that they've been able to implement in some of the other buildings, and they're just there as another support. I'm also going to, we do have another guest here from Wilson, but there were going to be a couple of other guests here who weren't able to make it, so I'm just going to read really quickly what they wanted to share. So Katie Sackett, our 4th grade teacher, and I apologize, but they texted to me. Katie Sackett, our 4th grade teacher, and Allie Bull, our 5th grade teacher, just wanted to speak a little bit about the collaboration time. And so they would just like to share that, as Ashley highlighted, one of our school focuses is our professional learning community. Wilson has a very unique perspective during our collaborative time. Each Tuesday during our MAPES time, so that's like their music art FIAD time, we meet with our vertical aligned teacher. For example, Allie Bull, 5th grade teacher, and I meet to talk about various topics. The beauty of being at a single section school is that we've had most of the students from the previous year. This helps each teacher share strategies to help each student succeed. We also have a grade level colleague that we often speak to about grade specific information. So I think what they're really speaking to there is they all kind of have like a buddy in another building that they really feel comfortable reaching out to as well. Although Wilson teachers face challenges being a single section school, it allows us to build, creatively collaborate, and build strong relationships with other staff and students. So again, that's from Katie Sackett and Allie Bull. And then I would also like to invite up our kindergarten teacher, Monica Keel, and she would just like to speak a little bit to our new reading curriculum.
Good evening, everybody. Again, Monica Keel, teaching kindergarten. This is my 13th year at Wilson, 21 years total teaching kindergarten. The Into Reading program, I was not part of a pilot, but I had heard good things from other kindergarten grade level team members. And once I got my hands into it in August, and then working with the children September and on, all of the parts of the literacy program fit so nicely. The Into Reading has all the parts all the components that we need. I like to dive right in when I do get a new curriculum and use the resources as they've been designed and as they're prescribed to me. And my students have had a lot of success this year so far with it, so I'm happy to report. Good job to the team who picked it. Again, writing has been, if any area would lend itself for a little bit more of a challenge, it would be the writing. I think the writing was a little higher level than where our students typically come in using. So we've been able to modify the instruction at that point and carry on. So again, overall, I'm really excited for the Into Reading for the kindergartners this year, but to see as it goes up, by the grades. So again, really happy with that. And speaking to also with meeting with our grade level, or not our grade level, but meeting with the 1st grade teacher that we do in our PLC time. I've had most of those students. I love to share what I know, learn strategies from our 1st grade teacher, so that too, speaking to what Allie and Katie were going to talk about tonight, it might sound like a disadvantage by not having other kindergarten grade level members in our building, but it's definitely not at Wilson. We definitely have made it a success. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so I would just like to touch on a little bit of our school culture and engagement at Wilson. So we've been able to participate again in some staff luncheons this year and some treat days. Our PTO has been wonderful at supporting some of those luncheons and some holiday treats for our students. Our 4th and 5th grade Wildcat leaders. So while we don't officially have a student council at Wilson, we certainly really try to do everything we can to have our 4th and 5th grade students really take on some leadership within our building. We think that's very important. some of that has been buddy classes with upper and lower grades. They've assisted with the food drive. We're doing a collection right now for the Dodge County Humane Society. Of course, they're part of that patrol program. They assist with some school-wide bulletin boards. We also have our weekly virtual assemblies. So during that time, we kind of have a focus and we celebrate. We have some building-wide celebrations, and then we also celebrate our VIPs, so our very important persons who have been elected by their teachers. We have also been fortunate to host Kids in the Kitchen. We actually have our second class for that on the calendar already here for the end of January. A few community outreach things I would just like to call out. Again, that food drive, the Humane Society collection. Life Academy, I know has, I think for a handful of years at least, had a very good kind of collaborative relationship with Wilson School, and I'm happy to say that we are continuing that tradition. Joanne Lehman's been wonderful. She brings some of her students out to the school. They have already, they kind of jazzed up our school for the holidays, which was really exciting, did some beautiful window paintings. They've come in and done some volunteer work, getting treat bags ready for the students for the holidays. They actually assisted in the library for a little bit as well, so we've been very grateful to continue to have that relationship. So, you don't have to just hear from me, though. I have a short video here that, again, Allie Sackett, our fourth grade teacher, or I'm sorry, Katie Sackett, our fourth grade teacher, and Allie Bull, our fifth grade teacher, put together with some of their fourth and fifth grade students to just help explain some of the great work that they've done.
At Wilson School, we foster relationships with others. Every Friday, our fourth grade and kindergarten classes pair up and read books together or complete a project. As fourth graders, we show our Wildcat way by being great role models to the younger students. We love our time together. It's so fun!
Fourth grade students made a donation bid, and our Wilson family donated numerous items to the Dodge County Humane Society.
At Wilson School, we help our 4K class by delivering their milk for snack break. It helps them focus on their learning. We get to build a relationship with other classrooms and teachers. In school, we help our students get to and from school safely. We work with Don and Debbie to help students safely cross the street. We also show our patriotism by putting the flag up daily and taking it down and folding it just like the men and women in the armed forces.
At Wilson School, we help out with the district food drive. We collect food items to donate to our local food banks. We care about the families in our community.
Each day we brought each class's food items down to the office so they could easily be picked up.
At Wilson School, we foster a community of learners that care about each other. Each Friday, we have a virtual assembly.
Fifth grade students help by leading the pledge. Other classrooms lead the pledge. Each day over the loudspeaker.
Mrs. Jansma highlights a focus for the month. We have focused on being grateful and thankful and respecting others. Each teacher nominates a VIP from their classroom. These students have excelled academically, behaviorally, and socially. We love to celebrate our awesome students that work so hard in and out of the classroom.
So thank you to Mrs. Sackett, Mrs. Bull for putting that together. All right, and then, just going to show a few pictures from some of the other exciting things we've been able to do this school year. I know we all just love to be able to see the kids in action a little bit, so just some pictures from art class, enjoying a book. Down in the right-hand bottom corner, we have some kiddos enjoying some ice cream. They actually were the winning class. We were very lucky to have Culver's was willing to actually donate some custard to us, so that was very kind. So they collected the most items for the food pantry. And then on the top there, you see that happy little guy there with his brand new bike. He actually had his name drawn from the summer reading program, so he was pretty thrilled to get a new set of wheels. Just some fun pictures from the holidays. Our PE teacher, she did a disco bowling. It was pretty neat. She kind of converted the whole entire gym into a disco bowling gym for the students. So that was great fun. And then just some of our other engagements we've had with the community. Again, the food drive, we did have some of our firefighters come out to serve us lunch. So that was very exciting. As you can see, some of our Life Academy students were happily painting away at our windows, and of course accepting some donations. Last but not least, Wilson Wildcats would like to present a VIP award to the BDUSD School Board. So I don't know if you are aware, but January is the National School Board Appreciation Month. So we would just like to thank you, our BDUSD School Board, for all you do to support our schools and our community. Your dedication to our education system is admirable and greatly appreciated. So thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, and thank you for doing such a good job saying the acronym and what it stands for in
Oh,
all
yes.
of your presentation. Much appreciated.
You bet. Yep.
And I think if we all remember back to our workshop that we just had, we're going to talk about that in a little bit, but we talked about professional learning communities, and we talked about collaboration, and I think it was really nice to see the discussion that came from you talking about the amount of collaboration that's done, especially in a single-section school. Sometimes we think that there's a loss to that in single-section schools, and obviously you've overcome that with the collaboration. And then the continuation, not just Wilson, but all the schools that have gone through the rotation of School of the Month so far, we've heard them talk about the professional learning community. And I think that fits really well into the conversation we had at the end of December, so thank you for that.
Thank you. All right. Thank you all.
All right, with that, we will go to 9.2, Return to Learn update. Mark?
So this evening, I've got a brief update for you and then one consideration moving forward. So our goals remain generally the same. We're going to talk about metrics, provide you with some updates, some of the specific realities that we're facing, and then provide an opportunity for conversation. Like I said, I'm going to have a specific consideration that I'd like you to think about, potentially take action or provide some flexibility with at the end. So as we look at our cases, kind of as anticipated or referenced, we have seen an increase in cases likely associated with the variant that I referenced last month, the Omicron variant. So our total confirmed cases in the boundary area, again, not our district itself, but the boundary area is at 262, which you can see is more than double what it was at in December the same time. And then the positive 7-day average is at 37.42, which again is more than double where we're at in December. So if you go to and look at hospitalization, so it kind of categorizes, you can look at South Central, it talks about it as growing. Generally speaking, all the hospitalizations that they're tracking are very high. So I don't want to say that growing now is maybe the same as growing 2 months ago. I mean, it's high as it is, and it's growing. Patients in ICU, though, it's higher than anybody would like, but it's categorized as no significant change from previous per se. They also reference too, just for context, like ventilator access. So right now, those are not being overly used. According to what DHS is reporting, there's a relatively high number available. Confirmed and probable cases. So again, this is the charter metric that we looked at, shows a graph over time since March of 2020 to now. I think the last confirmed data point that's been scrubbed was actually the 1st of 2022. The preliminary data is the band from the 1st through the 7th. So again, we've seen that uptick in the fall. We had a little bit of a dip early November in the county, and then it's bounced back up. If we look at activity specific to our district, so at this point in time, I've just provided averages for September, October, and November. So we see our percent positive for September was 0.43%, October 0.67, November 1.15, and then you can see in December and now in January what we're looking at for some percentages. So percentages were right around 1%. They dipped down a little bit here at the end of December and early January, but they are back up quite a bit. If we look at a district snapshot, so again, I grabbed this snapshot after our weekly meetings and during, it's usually midweek. So I wouldn't have it for today for this current week, but this is similar to the snapshots I provided. So last time we talked, that snapshot for the week of December 6th is on your left, and then last week's snapshot. So what you'll see is, generally speaking, again, all districts were starting to show some type of a trend up. We initially went down, but now as we know from this week, our numbers are back up. And we're anticipating just having early conversations. Those numbers in other districts are going to go up or hold around that 2% point, which looks like it's becoming a little bit more common. So what I really wanted to talk about a little bit too was quarantine timelines. So just based on our current practice and what's been recommended, accepted, and supported, we have essentially a 10-day quarantine process for people who are either positive or from the last contact or wellness date of a positive individual for household close contacts. So they return on day 11. So that's common, it's relatively standard, it's supported by our district medical advisor, and that's for students and staff. So, excuse me, for future consideration at this point in time, I know people are aware that new protocols came out. Right away, we saw some districts, very few, but some jumped on it right away to grab what I call kind of a 5-by-5 protocol. So instead of a full 10 days of isolation, there's 5 days where they're isolated, and then people are able to come back after that first 5 days of isolation and come back masked. A number of other districts kind of pushed the pause button, didn't want to jump on that. We're waiting for some additional context. I referenced to the board, it also shared with our parents and community members that we were going to continue to monitor. We were going to continue to monitor to see what additional context was going to be provided specifically related to schools, because that was really focused on general public and employers. And as we know, schools can be a different animal because of the concentration population of individuals, et cetera. And we also know, just from a context standpoint, that not all districts, most obviously in our area, and a number of districts across the state, don't necessarily require. Our district highly encourages masking, but it's not necessarily a requirement. So then to look at protocols that might require to have to manage and monitor that post that 5 days. But what I am looking at, would like to recommend that the board initially here provide flexibility to adopt that 5-by-5 protocol for staff. If, based on additional context from CDC and DHS reference, its application in schools, or, so in other words, if as we get more context, there's general support for that and that application with staff, or our needs to maintain operations call for it. So we've got a number of staff out on a relatively regular basis. We typically see in the winter, we see more staff out. There's more illness. There's always been, generally speaking, again, more illness. Those numbers are up. We're really, really on top of staff and supporting them not coming to work when they're ill. In the past, I know people don't want to talk about it, but we all know people would go to work sick. Didn't feel well, would cover their cough, would suck on some cough drops. I'm not sick. I just have a lingering cough. But no, seriously. So, but in all honesty, we're seeing more absences because of that, because our staff is being more diligent. We're more cognizant, more aware, and supporting people not being there. But from an operational standpoint, that creates a strain. So, over the last long time, but we're really starting to see it peak right now. Staff are really getting pressed, those that are here, particularly at the secondary level, when they have to cover, and at the elementary level when there isn't an option for coverage, because at the secondary level we can do period subs, we can do other things to cover, but that starts to wear, that starts to become really draining. At the elementary level, usually you're not able to cover it. Maybe a principal will fill in. A lot of times maybe they'll just give up MAPES, so they're giving up music, art, Phy-Ed, et cetera, to help maybe backfill that. But that creates a a burden, particularly over time. So what we'd like to have is a flexibility, because we know that our staff, if they're able to return, and that's an option for them, most of them would be able to actualize that they're isolate for 5 days, and then they return 5 days with a mask requirement if they're going to return to work. And that would just create a little bit more flexibility, particularly, again, if our main, if the ability to maintain operations calls for it. So we think it's manageable. We think it would be something that would be helpful. Again, I am reasonably sure that some of the additional context is going to support that. I think the ability to track, maintain, and monitor that for students in the immediate future is going to be a little bit of a challenge. I don't want to go rogue outside of that recommendation and start to implement other things, particularly with students. I think we need to take steps. I think we need to make progress per se, but we also have to just realize that we are in a unique situation right now, and there's a lot of people who are sick with a lot of things. Oh, I should probably do that. Questions, comments?
So, just so I can visualize this, take me through like a typical quarantine of a staff or student. They're in close contact with somebody. We've identified them as a close contact. So currently, right now, they're quarantining out of school for 10 days.
Close household contact.
Close household contact.
But only in the case of unvaccinated, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Correct. Yeah, and, or obviously, even if they're
Yes.
vaccinated, if they have symptoms, then.
Correct.
Correct.
Symptomatic or, yeah.
So it's 10 days and they return on day 11. And it would be 10 flat across the board.
Right, and this is whether,
And that's what we're asking right now. I reasonably anticipate, again, I think there's going to be more specific guidance and clarity directed at schools. This was a wide cast, kind of that 5x5 piece. That was a wide cast from CDC. It had has a lot to do with the economy, has a lot to do with people being at work, other critical functions, et cetera. Not saying, again, I think what we do and our kids being educated is obviously very, very important. But it wasn't necessarily put out there as to be practically applied and adopted from a school standpoint, particularly as it relates to students.
So you're expecting further guidance from the CDC?
Yeah, and part of me is a little bit nervous about what that's going to be and how practically that's going to be able to be applied. I mean, I think if we're just honest, I think there might be some things in there that, depending on the district, that's not necessarily going to be a practical solution either. But right now, there's a lot going around anyway. We want kids in school as much as possible, obviously. But I don't think we need to rush on the part, particularly as it relates to kids. I want them in school. I wouldn't want my kids missing more days than they would need to either. But I think we can practically manage, apply that with staff in most cases, and monitor it. I mean, we've got to remember we've got 3,500 kids. Monitoring it with 460 staff is not going to be easy either, necessarily, but it's more practical. Plus, the requirement of mask on the second half of the 5 days creates some unique realities as well. So I'd just like to take, I guess, another step and create that flexibility with staff. If we need to use that, if the operations call for it, they're trending that way. We want to stay open as much as possible. We don't want to be in a position where we have to have a cool-off period per se. I'm not saying that's out of the question, and as we've done before, previously last year, I know we had a few, we'd give people as much notice as possible. But as the board members are aware and community members are aware, regardless of the protocols that are in place right now, districts that are masking or not masking have very, very high numbers. snoop around any district in a variety of counties, and generally speaking, you're going to see it. And if it's not high today, it'll probably be higher tomorrow. So the operational impact is real, and we want to have some of that additional flexibility.
Well, I would definitely support the flexibility. I mean, even to a point of, I mean, at the end of the day, if you have staff that following the CDC guidelines is out for 5 and willing to come back and wear a mask for 5, I don't know why we don't give them that ability. But I think what you're asking is you're asking for flexibility based on further support from.
Well, I'm asking, yeah, I guess it's twofold. So one would be if they come out and say that they would support that flexibility and application in the school setting, which some people have just interpreted that right now, even though they have said from the get-go that there's going to be more clarity. What that's going to be, I can't tell you. Or again, how practically applied that's going to be in a school setting or depending on. But if that either comes out and it's a logical step, I'd like to be able to take that without obviously having to come back together. Or if from an operational standpoint, which could be sooner than later, we really believe that that is going to help alleviate operational burden and provide us with the flexibility we need to appropriately staff to maintain in-person school.
I would move that the board provide the flexibility to adopt the 5x5 protocol for staff if based on additional context referenced or needed to maintain operations.
I'll second it.
So we have a motion and a second then to provide the flexibility as asked for by Mark. Any further discussion?
You said specifically for staff?
Yeah, I did just mention for staff.
Staff in there? All right, if there's no further discussion, I would entertain a roll call vote.
Mark Jorgensen,
Yes.
John Kraus,
Yes.
Mary Coombs,
Yes.
Maria Mason,
Yes.
Lisa Panzer,
Yes.
Chad Krebe,
Yes.
Gary Spielman,
Yes.
Joanne Tajewski,
Yes.
Beverly Light.
Yes.
All right. Any other discussion for Mark before he leaves the podium? All
Thank
right,
you.
looks good. Nine point three, open enrollment space availability.
Hello, everyone. I'm Laura Sheeper, I'm the Director of Pupil Services, and I've got recommendations for open enrollment numbers for the following school year. As per our board policy 5113 and DPI's regulations, we need to set open enrollment numbers for students who wish to apply for our district who are not residents of our district in January here. You have a handout with the recommended space per grade level, and you'll see that there's regular education space in almost every grade level, except for 12th grade. And then we've got a special education section that you'll see that I've broken it down from early childhood, elementary, middle, high school, and then our speech and language numbers. And so when I look at what the recommendations are for open enrollment, I look at not only our current caseloads, but our current staffing. And so how much can we absorb and take on additional students, knowing that we get a lot of transfer-ins and we also get identification of students throughout the year. So at this time, we have no seats available for our special education open enrollment. And I'm asking if you have any questions, otherwise if you would take action on the recommendation.
So Laura, from the regular ed numbers that you provide, that's the quantity that we would be capable of absorbing with our current staffing level, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? No? Okay, thank you.
If not, we'll need a motion then.
I move the board approve the open enrollment space availability for 2022, 2023 as presented.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second then to approve the recommendations as presented. I guess all I need is an all in favor. Say aye.
Aye.
All those not, same sign. I wasn't saying you had to say all in favor. All right, thank you. On to,
Yeah.
all right. Recognitions. Anybody have any recognitions they'd like to share out? Been a quiet month.
Oh.
Mark, what about you?
Don't use the quiet word. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot we could write. I want to thank the Wilson staff for being great hosts the other day. So a few of us were able to go over there for a coffee chat and some tours and walk around. So they were awesome. Really appreciate that. It was nice, really nice conversation. I thought it was a nice, relaxed, casual, very open and candid conversation. So that was great. And I know the board members that were able to attend really appreciated that. And then just, our staff and our students, staff, continue to navigate unique times as we've heard about. And we know, and I want to really continue to thank them for, filling in to cover when their partners are, grade level partner or colleague across the hall or whoever's out, because everybody's stepping up in different ways. And I think they're all really happy and glad to do it and want to be extremely helpful. And that just takes energy, takes time. So I just want to continue to thank them for all that added time and support and energy that they're putting into that. So appreciate it.
Good.
Yep.
Anybody else? All right, we will move on to 10.1. And what's going on in the student body?
Hi, everyone. I don't have a lot today. You're welcome. So at the high school, our semester is ending this week. We have finals, so we have like a modified schedule on Thursday and Friday, which is nice because it's a lot shorter. And our school changed this year. We have this thing called win time at the end of the day. You can sign up and go to whatever teachers you want to go see if you need help or clubs. And we modified our schedule in 2022 last week and this week to have that every day, so teachers can pull kids in before finals if they need to get their work in, or if they're like about to fail and like they need to get stuff in or do tests. So that's really helpful, I think, for kids who need it. And then after finals, we're going to be having more class meetings. So every grade meets with their principals who are assigned to watch over them, just to go over expectations and, like, for me as a senior, talk about graduation and stuff. And also coming up on February 8th is Pasta with a Purpose at the high school. It's like a spaghetti dinner that's ran by a bunch of clubs like Geek Club, FFA, Student Council. Basically all the clubs get together and we're having an event before a girls' basketball game. You pay $7 and then you get pasta that's going to charity, and that's going to be 4:30 to 6:30. So if anyone wants to come get some food and then watch basketball, that'll be happening. Thank you.
Short. Any questions regarding that short presentation?
It was excellent.
Sadie is on the basketball team. I got to see her play.
That too.
Oh.
So not only can we watch the basketball team, we can watch you.
Yeah. Nice. If I get in.
All right, thank you very much for that report. Appreciate it. Operations.
Operations did not meet. Our next meeting is scheduled for January 24th.
All right, teaching and learning.
Teaching and learning also did not meet. Our next meeting is scheduled for next Monday, the 17th.
As Mark discussed, we did have coffee and an opportunity to spend some time at Wilson, as we've done with other schools of the month. So myself and Mary and Gary were all there, and we're part of that. We visited 3 classrooms, including including a kindergarten class. It's been a while since I've been in a kindergarten class, but I was reminded how chaotic it can be at sometimes.
You got the calendar right, though.
Yeah.
Monday, Tuesday.
They did get the calendar right, yeah. We took a look at just overall mechanics of the building, but probably most impressive was, and I'll probably echo what Mark talked about, was discussion with staff. You know, we see this reoccurring topic come up just regarding overall mental health, and I know that that's a topic not just in our district, not just at Wilson, but nationwide. But they were really happy with the increase in supports this year over previous years, so they were nice to say that. And quite honestly, and I say this probably with every school that I've been in, it's incredible to see the passion of our staff. So that's always nice to see as well. Anybody else? Anything else? All right. 10.5, so we had a workshop on December 20th, high-functioning learning teams, and you heard me talk about this a little bit earlier. Basically, the workshop provided a better understanding for the board on how teams operate within a professional learning community model, how the teams achieve equity and excellence, and making sure that the teams meet the needs of all and every learner. And so, really, the three big ideas that came out of the conversation, and probably the main topics of a professional learning community, include the three things: learning, focus on learning with collaboration, and making sure we're results oriented. And I think as we've continued to listen to conversation from staff and from schools, we continue to hear that professional learning community in action. We're constantly talking about the continuous collaboration and making sure that, and we just saw it on Wilson, looking at the results. And it was interesting to me, these four questions that are typically asked in the professional learning community, specifically this collaboration time. And one of the teams at every single school is this collaboration team. And every time they meet, they go and they ask these four specific questions. Number one, what do we want our students to know? How will we know that they learned it? If they didn't learn it, how will we respond? And then for those that are being proficient, how do we extend the learning opportunity? And so those conversations are constantly happening in these collaboration teams that are part of this professional learning community. And then basically went into specific district teams, central office team, district admin team, parent advisory, staff advisory on the district level. And then on the school side, guiding coalition, school intervention team, which was talked about today, and then this collaboration team that I just mentioned. So I was very informative and gave me a much better understanding of how these teams work within this professional learning opportunity or professional learning community and how they work within the Beaver Dam Unified School District. So with that, I'd open it up for any other comments that any other board member has regarding the workshop that we had.
I agree. I mean, the workshop was super beneficial. Got us more into the nuts and bolts and how like all of our teams, you know, from the parent to the staff and everything, how it all comes down, you know, like spokes on a wheel down to the hub. And, you know, we are seeing this stuff happen. We have been seeing it happen, and we're going to continue to see it happen. And it was just nice to have a really good deep dive and really understand all the components that go into it. So it was a very, very well time spent, I would say.
Anybody else?
Just to the reminder that this is a process and that it takes a real commitment to this process, and that, you know, you may not see results immediately, but that we need to stay committed and stay the course. And also the reliance on data and reflection on teaching. So it's not just like, yeah, I felt that unit went pretty well. So, you know, that doesn't fly anymore. So the time they put into, while they're planning their next unit, reflecting on the one they just did and possibly reteaching, just really helps you understand the amount of work that teachers put in every day and staff put in every day to make sure our kids are learning what they're supposed to be learning. So I really appreciated the time and the energy that went into this workshop.
Especially when you talk about the time in the process, because some of this stuff was, talked 3 to 5 years even longer sometimes before you realize the end result, so.
Anybody else?
I think Rob and I had a conversation beforehand. We were planning workshops out and prospective workshops and talked a little bit about the vision for this. And Rob's the actualizer, particularly as it relates to this. And I got to talk a little bit, but Rob Brandpoint did a great job. So I know the board really appreciated the work that he put into it. So thanks, Rob.
Thank you.
All right, 10.6, WASB, proposed 2022 resolutions.
So I am going to be our delegate to vote on the resolutions. You should have a copy of the resolutions in your packet tonight. I got emailed a packet. I read through them all. Doesn't look like anything disconcerting to me. A few new ones are getting introduced, and there's some amendments to some existing ones that are being proposed. So I guess I would ask that everyone, if they have some time and read them and let me know what you think, because I am gonna, I'm representing the whole board. So I just ask that if, read them through them, and if you got any questions, concerns, or any input that you think would be of value and use to me and how I think we should vote for our district, I would greatly appreciate it.
All right, thank you, John. With that, I will look for a motion to move into closed session.
I move the board go into closed session for Wisconsin Statute 19.85, Parent 1, Parent C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility specifically to discuss specific employees, and approve the minutes of the closed session on December 13th, 2021. The board will reconvene into open session for the possible transaction of business and adjournment.
Second.
All right, motion and a second to move into closed session. Roll call vote, please.
John Coe?
Yes.
Mary Kay?
Yes.
Maria Mason?
Yes.
Lisa Panzer?
Yes.
Ed Feely?
Yes.
Grace Gilman?
Yes.
Brent Hajewski?
Yes.
Ed Billy?
Yes.
Marcia Jorgensen?
Yes.
All right, I've been told this will be short, so hopefully we'll be back.
Oh, don't say that.
Famous last words.
Oh, no.
All right, we are back in open. We'll move on to 13.1.
Before I go over the resignations and retirements this evening, I just want to take a minute to recognize a staff member who passed last week, Marla DeJager. She's been with our district since 2013, so she will be greatly missed. That said, Jim Bramer, he's been with our district for 22 years, and he'll be retiring at the end of this school year. Nancy Belter has been with our district for over 29 years, and she'll be retiring at the end of the school year. And Pete Dusterbeck has been with us for 10.
I move the board approve the retirements as presented.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the retirements as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
All those not, same sign. All right.
We have 2 leaves of absence on the agenda for your consideration this evening.
I move the board approve the leaves of absence as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the leaves of absence as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
All those not, same sign. Forgot what I was doing.
It's good to be honest.
That is approved.
Sounds good. Okay. For appointments, we have 1 full-time substitute teacher, Skylar Eberly. He's currently student teaching with us at the high school. This should actually say high school. He will be a full-time LTE substitute teacher at the high school. And then Carrie Duax, Amber Hop, Mikkel McClelland, and Ashley Probst are on the agenda for long-term sub positions for other leaves that have already been approved.
I move the board approve the appointments as presented.
Second.
All right, motion and a second to approve the appointments as presented. Roll call vote, please.
Mary Coombs? Yes. Maria Mason?
Yes.
Lisa Panzer?
Yes.
Chad Green?
Yes.
Gary Spielman?
Yes.
Ryan Tajewski?
Yes.
Debbie Lake?
Yes.
Marge Jorgensen?
Yes.
John Kraus?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nicole.
I always try to thank her because she's always got to stay through closed session all the time. All right, on to board policy update, final reading.
The board had an opportunity to receive and review board policy 8510, which is a district wellness policy. It's required by law that districts have a wellness policy. So there were some recommended updates as well as some other updates provided from context from our wellness committee. So with that, I would ask that in this final reading, the board approve board policy updates to the wellness policy 8510.
I move that the board approve the board policy 8510 recommendations. and
Second.
revisions.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the updates to 8510 wellness policy. All in favor?
Aye.
All those not, same sign. All right. Administrator contracts.
So members of our administrative team are either on odd or even years. At this time, for even folks, would request that the board approve the renewal of their contracts for applicable administrators in even years. So it'd be a 22-24 contract.
I move the board approve administrator contracts for the 2022-24 for applicable administrators whose contracts expire in 2022.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the administrative contracts for 22-24. Roll call vote, please.
Maria Mason?
Yes.
Lisa Panzer?
Yes.
Chad Green?
Yes.
Gary Spielman?
Yes.
John Tajewski?
Yes.
Debbie Lake?
Yes.
Marge Jorgensen?
Yes.
John Kraus?
Yes.
Mary Coombs?
Yes.
All right. Other business, payment of claims.
I move for payment of claims in the amount of $3,706,999.66.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve payment of claims. With a roll call vote, please.
Lisa Panzer?
Yes.
Chad Green?
Yes.
Gary Spielman?
Yes.
John Tajewski?
Yes.
Debbie Lake?
Yes.
Marge Jorgensen?
Yes.
John Kraus?
Yes.
Mary Coombs?
Yes.
Maria Mason?
Yes.
With that, entertain motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second for adjournment. All in favor?
Aye.
All those not, same sign.